ever have one of those moments where something totally familiar, maybe a landmark you see all the time, is suddenly part of something? Well, completely bizarre.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of the strange situation we're digging into today.
Yeah, it's a really unexpected one. We're focusing on an incident from Saturday, May 17th, 2025. It involves the Mexican Navy's tall ship, the Cuauhtemoc.
And the Brooklyn Bridge.
Exactly. A beautiful historic sailing ship on a goodwill tour somehow collided with, one of the most famous bridges in the world.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack the key facts. What exactly happened? What was the immediate fallout? And maybe touch on some of the wider implications.
And we're mostly drawing on reporting from the Associated Press for this deep dive, getting those on-the-ground details.
That's the plan.
Okay, so let's get into it. A tall ship hitting the Brooklyn Bridge. It's hard to even picture what actually went down.
Well, the AP report lays it out. The Cuauhtemoc, the Mexican Navy ship, was in the East River. And the very top parts of its masts, they actually struck the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge span.
Struck it like a hard hit.
Apparently so.
Right.
It wasn't just a scrape. The impact was enough that all three of the ship's main masts snapped.
All three. Wow. Just like that. What time did this happen?
It was Saturday evening, around 8:20 p.m.
Okay.
And the location was over near the Brooklyn side of the East River.
And there's a detail here that seems odd.
Yeah, this is interesting. The report mentions the ship was actually moving in reverse.
Backwards, towards the bridge.
Towards the bridge, yeah. Which, for a large sailing vessel in a place like the East River, that immediately raises questions about control and maneuverability.
It really does. And the cuauhtemoc, it wasn't just out for a casual sail, was it? It had a specific mission here.
That's right. It was part of a huge global tour. A goodwill and promotional voyage planned for 254 days.
Wow.
Visiting 22 ports, 15 different countries. It had actually just gotten to New York City on May 13th.
So only a few days before this happened.
Exactly. And they'd even had the public on board, welcoming visitors for several days. The whole journey kicked off way back in Acapulco on April 6th.
Quite the voyage, then. What about the bridge itself? 8:02 p.m. on a Saturday. Must have been busy up there.
Oh, definitely. The report confirms there was heavy traffic, cars, and pedestrians on the bridge at the time.
But no injuries on the bridge?
Fortunately, no. The AP report specifically states no injuries occurred among the people actually on the bridge structure.
Okay, that's a huge relief. But the ship's snapped masts sound incredibly serious. What happened to the crew?
Yeah, this is the tragic part. The aftermath on the ship was severe. Initial reports mentioned 19 people aboard needing medical help.
Okay.
But the Mexican Navy later clarified those numbers. They reported 22 injuries in total, with 19 of those needing hospital treatment.
Were there fatalities?
Yes. Very sadly, 2 crew members died from the serious injuries they sustained during the collision.
Oh, that's just awful, devastating. You can almost feel the chaos of that moment.
Right.
What did people see from, the shore?
Well, eyewitnesses described some really harrowing scenes. They saw sailors actually dangling from harnesses high up in the rigging.
The rigging. That's the ropes and masts.
Yeah, exactly. The network supporting the sails. When those masts snapped, the sailors up there were left in, an extremely dangerous position.
It's hanging there. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And the ship itself, it's this big vessel flying a large Mexican flag, had 277 people on board. After the collision, it apparently started drifting.
Drifting.
And drifted into a pier along the riverbank.
Wow. So damaged, masts down, and adrift? How did they get it under control?
Tugboats were dispatched pretty quickly. They came in and helped maneuver the cuauhtemoc.
Okay.
They eventually managed to get it secured at a pier further downriver,
Yeah.
actually past the Manhattan Bridge.
Just to get a sense of scale, how big is this ship?
It's quite large, roughly 297 feet long, about 40 feet wide.
And the masts, how tall were they before?
The main mast reached about 160 feet.
160 feet. Okay, you can see how that would be an issue with the bridge clearance then.
Absolutely. That height is clearly a critical factor in why this happened.
So with something this major, obviously people want answers. How could this happen? What are the first explanations or, what's the focus of the investigation now?
Right. Well, first off, Mayor Adams did make a statement fairly quickly, assuring everyone that the bridge itself, which is 142 years old, remember, seemed to have avoided major structural damage.
That's good news, at least.
Definitely. But the main focus now is the investigation into why this collision occurred, what led up to it.
Any initial theories floating around?
There was an initial report, and they were careful to say it was preliminary,
Sure, early days.
suggesting that the ship's pilot might have had some kind of mechanical problem. Maybe you lost power.
Mechanical failure? Okay.
That's one angle. Another piece is that there was apparently a tugboat operating near the cuauhtemoc right when it happened.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the interaction between the tug and the tall ship, the timing, what exactly the tug was doing, that's almost certainly going to be a big part of the investigation, too.
Right, that adds another layer. And what about the ship's intended path? Was it even supposed to be going near the bridge?
Well, according to Police Commissioner Arambles, no.
No.
He stated the ship had actually just left the pier in Manhattan,
Okay.
and its intended course was supposed to be heading out to sea.
Out, away from the bridges, not towards the Brooklyn Bridge.
Exactly. So why it was moving towards the bridge and in reverse? That's the big question investigators need to answer.
The whole thing is just so startling. What's been the reaction, generally?
Well, Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, she expressed deep regret over the deaths, naturally, and offered support to the families of the crew members affected.
Understandable.
And as you'd expect, eyewitnesses who saw it happen just described being in shock, really. Disbelief at seeing this unfold.
I can imagine. It's not something you expect to see, a tall ship hitting the Brooklyn Bridge. Speaking on the bridge, maybe just remind us quickly about its significance.
Sure. I mean, the Brooklyn Bridge is iconic for a reason. It opened way back in 1883. That main span, nearly 1,600 feet long, held up by those two massive stone towers. It's an engineering marvel, really.
And it's still a major artery, right?
Hugely important. It carries well over 100,000 vehicles every single day. And then you've got the pedestrians. Estimates are around 32,000 people walk across it daily.
Plus, all the tourists using that walkway, it's a huge attraction.
Absolutely. It's a landmark, a transport route, a tourist destination, all in one.
So after the collision, what happened with bridge traffic? Did they have to shut it down?
They did, yeah. As a precaution, authorities halted all traffic immediately after the incident.
Made sense.
They needed to get inspectors up there, check everything out, make sure there wasn't any serious damage to the structure itself.
And the verdict?
Thankfully, the city officials determined pretty quickly that the bridge was structurally sound. No major damage found. So traffic was allowed to resume relatively soon after.
Okay, good. So let's just recap the main points here. We have the Mexican Navy tall ship, the cuauhtemoc, here on this global goodwill tour,
Right.
collides with the Brooklyn Bridge while apparently moving in reverse.
Tragically resulting in the deaths of 2 crew members, injuries to nearly 24 others.
And snapping all 3 of the ship's masts. Significant damage to the vessel.
Yep. And now a full investigation is underway to figure out the cause, mechanical failure, navigational error, the role of the nearby tugboat, why it was heading towards the bridge. Lots of questions.
It really was a dramatic and tragic scene against such a famous backdrop.
Definitely unexpected. And it really brings into focus the challenges maybe of having these historic, large vessels operating in really busy modern waterways.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Thinking about things like safety protocols, pilot training, maybe even, the human factors involved when you're maneuvering something like that so close to critical infrastructure. What parts of that whole system are likely going to get a much closer look after an incident like this?